Okay, hello everyone. To kick off our session, we are going to do a little swearing in. So our new senator, who has not been sworn in yet, please make your way down.
I just saw your new Joss or mustard Joss.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this working? Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Joshua Sexton.
On here, do you want to hold that? Sure. on this 30th day of November 2022.
On this 30th day of November 2022.
Swear to abide by and uphold.
Swear to abide by and uphold.
The Constitution and bylaws.
The Constitution and bylaws.
Of the Purdue Student Government.
Of the Purdue Student Government.
I swear to conduct.
I swear to conduct.
All legislative business.
All legislative business.
With the utmost integrity.
With the utmost integrity.
And with the best interest of the Purdue University and its student body.
And with the best interest of the Purdue University
and its student body.
Purdue University and its student body.
As my main objective.
As my main objective.
Yay. Great job. Okay, with that, hello and welcome all at 7:13. I will now call this meeting to order. We will start with an introduction of our visitors. So if you are a visitor, please state your name and your reason for being here.
David Hickey, Purdue Exponent.
Sam Montgomery, Purdue Exponent. Victor Foster with the
Alrighty, perfect. We will now move into proxy reports. So if you are a proxy, please state your name and the reason, and the name of the senator you are proxying for at this time.
Cecilia Cooper, Morgan Conrad.
Lovely.
My name is Jack Lambert, and I'm proxying for Mickey X.
Alrighty. Hearing no more proxies, we will move into roll call by Secretary Friend.
Senator Ferguson.
Here.
Senator Mariani.
Here.
Senator Hampton.
Here.
Senator Scudder.
Here.
Here. Here.
Senator Diaz.
Excused.
Senator.
Here.
Senator Dindon.
Here. Not here.
Senator Conrad.
Proxy. Excused or on Zoom.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Senator de Guzman.
Here.
Senator Hirsch.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Not here. Excused. Proxy.
Here.
Alrighty. I think we have one more joining us from Zoom, Parker Woodruff, so he is here. All right. After roll call, we will now move into our land acknowledgement. So Purdue Student Government acknowledges the traditional homelands of the indigenous people which Purdue University is built upon. We honor and appreciate the Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, and Shawnee people who were the original indigenous caretakers. Now we will move into our pledge of purpose. So senators, please rise. Our purpose is to be
the voice of the Purdue student body, serve the needs of students in all university matters, and provide leadership that stimulates initiative inspires excellence, and exemplifies professionalism. And above all, hail Purdue.
Perfect. All right. The minutes for the last meeting were distributed to all via SharePoint. Are there any corrections to the minutes at this time? Okay. Hearing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. We will now move into executive reports. I know President Jensen just walked in, so we can circle back if you need to.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. So for my executive reports, I apologize that there's no special programming tonight, but I thought we might need that time for legislation considering we got 12 big ones on the dock. So looking forward to that. And then also this is reiterating what I said last session about that the Indiana Senate is still looking for interns for this session, and that all starts in January. So it's a paid experience. It's an amazing way to get involved with politics and advocacy work. So there's positions in both the Republican and Democratic offices. So if you're interested, please let me know and I'll connect you there. But as far as that, President Jensen, are you ready yet? Yes, you can. We'll move on to Sean, Treasurer Wiseman.
All right, it's just an end of semester update on the finances. I guess there's a lot of money talk tonight, but as the budget stands now, in total, PSG has spent $17,721. Of that, 6.63% is internal, which comes out to about $7,000 of our allotted $13,000, which again is 12% of our total.
Alrighty. Pro Tem Dodona.
Yeah, so as we said the last couple of meetings, Senate duties are sort of coming to a close. So please take a look at those and see what you haven't been able to get to. And if you haven't been able to get to some, please reach out and we'll try to accommodate you. Please reach out to me, Lily, or Izzy, or all of us. And we'll try our best to accommodate you and figure stuff out. But take a look. A lot of them still can still be done. So please have them done by the end of the school year.
Well said. President Jensen, you ready?
Does this one work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick couple things. Lift legislation on the docket for tonight. Really excited about that. And then from Chief of Staff Oregby as well, don't forget about the PSG prom on Friday. If you guys have not RSVP'd for that, please do. You're still able to do so. The catering, Jimmy John's, I think it is, and it's in the co-rec as well. It's in the feature gym. So come dressed up for that and look nice. As well, Izzy and I got a bunch of calendar invites for next semester for the Transformative Education 2.0 committee. So what that means for PSG is Izzy and I wanted one comprehensive Purdue app, and so the provost of the university, or I guess the vice provost of the university, took that on, and so all of those calendar invites that Izzy and I got are demos from companies coming in and demonstrating that. And so we'll be involved in some of those, and then some of them you guys will be able to be involved in as well once we kind of get the search narrowed down a little bit, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. Were there any other executive reports? Pro Tem Ferguson?
Just in addition to Ellie's comments, if you all who ordered polos and have not received them, and those of you who have not received your name tags yet, could stay after the session. We do have them for you.
Really, really briefly.
Yes. Any other executive? Yes, Press Secretary Chris.
All right, so this is my last one. Very emotional, but it's all right. First things first, the next boiler update is going out tomorrow. I'm going to be helping, hopefully, Andrew with that. Hopefully his bill gets passed through. And then one other thing, Andrew Jensen asked me if I wanted to say anything during my last Senate session, so I figured right now would be the best possible time, and I'll try to keep this quick for our meeting's sake. First, I just want to thank some people, and firstly and most importantly, I want to thank my parents. They were the ones that kept me motivated and reminded me why I joined PSG in the first place, even though I know for a fact they will never see this. I would also like to thank Andrew and Izzy as well for giving me the opportunity to serve as press secretary this semester and taking a chance on me and letting me do this job. I would also like to thank the countless friends I've made along the way, both in and outside of PSG, for keeping me going. And then to the Senate, I know many of you questioned if I could handle this job or not. And I hope that I was able to prove to you that I was qualified for this job. And as my time is coming to a close, I would like to leave you all with this one piece of advice. Do not let petty politics get in the way of why everyone in this org joined. And that is to help the students of Purdue University. Thank you.
Nicely put. Any other executive reports? All right. Seeing none, we can move into committee reports, starting with internal affairs. Josh, do you want to say something, or do you want one of your other committee members to say something?
No, I can speak. Can y'all hear me?
Can you speak again, Josh?
Hello.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Sorry I can't be there tonight. Not too much from IA. Big thing, election rules are going to the floor tonight, which is exciting. And I think working through, just got the SAO bylaw comments, so we'll start working on those, finish the Constitution comments, get those back through to go through next semester. And other than that, that's it from IA, just celebrating the election rules finishing.
Congratulations there. Financial affairs? Yeah.
So we had a lot go through financial affairs this past Sunday, but thankfully it all passed. Really looking forward to discussion on the stipends, the HEAM bill, and the LIFT legislation. In terms of small grant stuff, we've definitely had a little bit of a slowdown in terms of applications, but that's expected as the semester winds down. But pretty much as of the end of this semester, we've given out over $5,500, which is significantly farther ahead than we were last year. So at some point next semester, there could be a bill reallocating some money so we can keep going and not have to stop. And then in terms of leadership, the committee voted Shai in as the new chair, so technically I'm not chair right now.
Nice. Campus and student resource affairs. Does anyone have the updates from that committee?
Does someone from her committee want to speak? I know Sydney's running late.
I can speak on them. We have one bill coming to the floor today. We mostly tried to draft legislation, and anything that didn't really make it to the floor today is all in the work. We're trying to gather some information on those. Notable bills, I believe we have a women's and menstrual products, thank you. A bill on that, and we're trying to gather information about that. Bike racks is another thing that I know has been in the past couple Senate sessions that has been talked about. Still trying to gather information on that. And then lastly, I believe plastic bags in the marketplaces is the last bill. So that's about it.
Sounds good. University academic affairs.
All right, not much from us, but we're meeting next week with Vice Provost Jenna Rickus to talk about the exam legislation that we want to create, and if that goes well, which I most likely will, we're going to find a time to all meet during Quiet Week and try to write that legislation down.
Nice. Moving on to our ad hoc committees. Part-time to Dana.
Yeah, so SAFER has been moving forward on some of our initiatives. Just to touch on 3 basic ones really quickly. So I mentioned getting a survey out there about safety culture on campus. That's taking a little longer than expected because we're trying to get some review from the university in terms of making sure we're not asking leading questions, making that data as viable as possible to sort of implement into big changes. So that's not going out as soon as I'd like, but it should be going out probably when we get back at the end of this semester. End of first part of next semester. And then we've been, after the legislation passed the last session, I think, we're working with some people from legal as well as student life to work on a little bit of the processes to ensure that they are sort of get the objectives across while also ensuring as little like trauma to survivors as possible. So those have been some really interesting conversations and making sure that it legally translates over as well. And then lastly, we're aiming to do a sexual violence prevention roundtable sometime in January or February. What that's going to look like is organizations who focus on these issues coming together, talking about what they're doing, where they're finding areas that they really, avenues that they are progressing towards well, and ones that they're having issues with, and sort of brainstorming how we can better collaborate and work together. So those are the three things that SAFER is primarily working on right now.
Sounds great. Yes.
So with the Black Boilermaker Ad Hoc Committee, we have another meeting tomorrow. I devised a schedule for us looking at production and when we start when are we going to start needing students and things like that. So we're all really excited about our ideas for the project and what it's going to look like.
Yeah, awesome. Pro Tem Ferguson?
Yeah, Pride just yesterday had a lunch with the LGBTQ Center to get student feedback and student survey responses for our queer student issues survey, and had a lot of great feedback as well as a good space moving forward for our action plan.
Great. Yes, Senator Bowman.
So the Disabled Student Ad Hoc Committee, we just had a meeting with the DRC as well as the Disabled Student Union representative. We are currently working on creating an action plan with items that will help hopefully improve accessibility on campus. And we also are in the works with SPNA to create a survey to send out to the student body to kind of gauge, accessibility barriers around campus and work to address those.
Great. Any other committee reports at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we can move into informal discussion. Do I hear any informal discussion at this time? Pro Tem Dodonna?
Sorry, I had a really brief question for Treasurer Weissman. For the internal spending ceiling, how close are we getting to that? I know you talked about some bigger numbers than I expected. Is that about halfway point for the semester? I was just curious.
Yeah, we're at 6.6% out of the 12% limit, so just over half.
Delightful, thank you.
Alrighty. Any more informal discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we can move into old business. Do I hear any old business at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we can move into new business. Do I hear any new business at this time? Senator Merkel.
I motion to resign.
Declined.
Well, okay, Senator Esquinas.
I second.
We can vote on it.
If I get a second, does it count?
Senator Esquinas.
Chair doesn't recognize it.
I move to bring up Bill 2234.
Second.
Okay, perfect. It's been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2234, Cabinet Appointment, Elections Director Evan Patterson. This bill is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. We will start with discussion from the authors of the bill and then move into discussion from the floor. So, any discussion at this time?
Yeah, so I can't talk enough about how good of a guy Evan is. He's going to do a fantastic, am I doing this right? Okay. Yeah. He's going to do a fantastic job as elections director if made so. He's got a lot of experience in this front. I know you have talked to him in caucus, and so you're aware of some of his resume. But a couple of the big things that I'd like to hit on is that he worked with the Secretary of State this summer, specifically on the election law compliance. And so that alone is a pretty good, it's a really good resume builder on how well he could do at this position. He has held statewide voter awareness events to build a rapport with voters, give people ideas, get them to the polls, that sort of thing. He's done well as his position as Executive Director of Government Relations. However, he hasn't been in PSG for a long time, and so this gives him the objectivity so that he is not tied to anyone who potentially could be running. He has that ability to move into a new position and fulfill the duties of such without any conflict of interest. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer. But also, Evan would be great to ask.
Yes, so is there any other discussion at this time? President Jensen.
I'll just say something real quick. With this cabinet appointment, it does have to come from me, but with this one, I did give Braden the autonomy to pick who that was. That reason being, Braden did sit in that seat last year. He knows how that role goes, what person is good for the position, how to do it well as well, and thankfully we have Braden here to kind of advise whoever's in that role. But with Braden being in that role last year, he knows exactly who and what type of person would be fit for that role. And so Braden was like, hey, Evan would be great. And so backed by that as well.
Great. Any other discussion from the floor? Senator Esquinas?
So last year on the elections committee, there was a little bit of, or there were a few issues in terms of retention of committee members, and then also just committee member follow through. What are you planning on doing to make sure that you lead a strong committee and that your committee follows through with everything you plan on?
That's a great question. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for Cabinet for supporting this appointment. I appreciate all the senators taking the time to consider this appointment. But back to your question, Senator, I think choosing a very robust committee of people that are really committed to the cause and making sure that everyone that's on the committee has an intended purpose and that they execute this purpose is very effective in completing these tasks. So just choosing the right people to do the correct job. So.
Pro Tem Tadena?
So from your experience at the state level, are there any things that you learned or implemented that you'd want to carry through into PSG elections?
That's also a great question. I think a big overarching principle that I learned while I was at the Secretary of State's office in Indianapolis is that people feel most confident about an election when everything is transparent as possible. So I think incorporating that same sense of transparency that Secretary Sullivan brings to state elections and federal elections, bringing it to PSG like it was last year, I think is going to be very beneficial in helping out this election process.
All right, any other discussion from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to a vote on Bill 2234. But before we do so, Evan, can you please exit the room? Thank you. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your name placards. All opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Okay. Now if you would please all go onto SharePoint and log in your votes.
Question from the Zoom/Slack. What should we do? What should they do for voting? Just into the SharePoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
What I can also have them do is I'll have them raise their hand on Zoom. I'll do that too. Okay, oh wait, I guess we can ask Evan to come back. Yep, there he is. Okay, with a vote of 26-1 to 0, Bill 2234 passes. Congratulations, Evan. Alrighty, do I hear any other new business at this time? Yes.
I move to bring up Bill 2235.
Second.
Perfect. It has been properly moved, Yes, properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2235, the 2023 election rules. This bill is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. We will start with discussion from the authors of the bill and then move into discussion from the floor. Would you wish to speak? Yes.
Yeah, so these are the election rules that Internal Affairs, as well as Lily and I, have been working on for the last couple of months. I'm going to sort of go do some big picture stuff, and then Lily and I are going to walk through some of like the bigger changes just so everyone's aware of what's sort of being altered in these election rules. To start off with, in the past, basically, the election rules were kind of kept the same and just added upon. So what Lily and I wanted to do was sort of reconsider the language to make it more transparent and sort of rewrite all of it. So this is all, with some copy and paste, all sort of reworded, refocused election rules to make it as clear and easy to use as possible. So building off that, there's some elements that were added based on conversations with Internal Affairs, as well as Braden, as well as candidates. So to start off with, one thing that was added was a conflict of interest section. It's going to be in order through the document. So conflict of interest section, which basically meant that if someone was utilizing their position to help a certain candidate or a certain team, then there would be a possibility for repercussions for that, just as a safeguard in case that occurs and a process in case that occurs. Additionally, we decreased the amount of Senate signatures that were required. Initially, it was 100. It's been decreased to 75. This is after some conversations from from some of the smaller colleges, as well as just like all of you, of how difficult it is to get those 100 signatures from a very specific college, and trying to make it more accessible for more students to run for Senate while all still having that barrier of wanting to get student support to be on the ballot. Additionally, the petition filing for both presidential as well as Senate is public. So once you file for your petition and are starting to get signatures, that is now public for everyone to see. The intentionality for that is to allow, it's a public election, and we want to get as many people to know about it as possible, so having that as an avenue for information for everyone to see. There's been some clarified language around petitioning. Initially, there were some interpretation issues of people not being able to utilize, like, talking about what they wanted to do or their ideas during petitioning, which was kind of awkward for when talking to students and being like, well, I can't tell you what I really want to do because that's not allowed. So this changes the language a little bit, still not allowing for like platform conversations, but the ideas, the things that inspired you to run, that are the things you can talk about. You just can't put it into a succinct platform idea, and there's some examples of what that exactly looks like in the election rules. There's some changes in the structure. So instead of just going from open campaigning to voting, there's a period of time called online campaigning as well as election committee campaigning, and that's a period of time where candidates from both the Senate and the presidential side are able to have their website open as well as their Instagram open, and then the elections committee is going to be giving out non-biased information. Their intentionality is to increase the amount of people who get information about PSG elections without that inherently having to be people tabling out there for 2 weeks. So this is meant to sort of still allow for more information to get out there, but not as intensely. And then there is a difference in allowing for on-campus versus off-campus campaigning. Off-campus campaigning is no longer allowed. So what that looks like is basically everyone's running for a position in for the undergrad student body, and so that should be focused on campus. So that includes you can't do restaurants or coffee shops to try to keep that materials out of businesses who might not want that material there, but it doesn't. Includes, I know we talked about Title IX, if it's under university control, it's still considered university property. So sororities and fraternities would still be allowed under this.
Pro Tem Ferguson?
Yeah, and then to go for the rest of it, one of the things that was done was lowering the single source amount for donors, taking that from $500 and reducing it to $250 per single donor to allow for more financial equity throughout the electoral process, including some prohibitive voting activities and really clarifying what prohibitive voting can be for coercion, transactional voting, and non-consensual voting. There was a expanded upon timelines, I think, just across the board. As you will look at these new election rules, there was just a lot more time given for different things, whether that be for results release or appeals, grievance filing, finding the evidence for grievances, just allowing people to have a little bit more flexibility in their time to allow for academic success as well as personal well-being. There was a clarified major versus minor determination criteria, as well as clarifying appeals for major versus minor grievances and who's involved in that appeal process, what that appeal process looks like, and just giving some more guidance for elections directors. Last year, for percentage deductions through grievances, they were done on a points system, which equated to percentages of votes. So we kind of just took out that middleman of the point system and just clarified it by adding in when a grievance is decided upon, you're just looking at percentages, you're not looking at points. It just makes it a little bit more simple and a little bit easier. In addition, voting tabulation was clarified, and how ranked choice voting would be calculated was laid out within the election rules. In addition, there was an add of a release of results to candidates before the general student body to allow for candidates to be able to either ask questions about the results before it was exposed to the entirety of the student body, just to allow for more flexibility there. In addition, there was an expanded upon timeline of gross negligence beyond the release of results to be able, but the amount of signatures was kept the same. So it would be 2,000 signatures in 5 days after the expansion of results, after the release of results, rather than I believe it was 5 days after the end of voting was what it was last year. So that is all. I do want to thank everyone who worked on these election rules, because these were a very, very long time, and I really, really want to thank both Braden and IA for just the amount of work and the amount of review that went through these.
Alrighty. Do I hear any other discussion from the floor? Yes, Senator Esquinas.
So addressing the timeline, the online campaigning begins March 21st, but the finished petition is due on March 9th. Can you talk a little bit about the thought process there for leaving so much time in between when the petition is due and when you can start online campaigning? Because my perspective is that the more time you allow campaigns to actually do that campaigning, the more votes you're going to get, the more people on campus are going to be reached out to. And it also kind of tackles some of the issues with campaign equity, because if a campaign has a larger social media presence and all of that, it doesn't matter nearly as much how much money they raise. I understand why the decision was made to have a short window for when you can actually be campaigning on campus, but why the online campaigning too?
Yeah, Pro Tem Ferguson.
I think my biggest reasoning for that would be not overburdening students with elections material over their spring break, frankly. I don't think it's fair for students, either as a part of the elections and who are campaigning, nor students who don't want to be, maybe not want to be involved, because I think everyone should want to be involved, but don't want to be burdened by that amount of material over their spring break, and just allowing for a clear cut. This should start after people get back from break.
Senator Jane.
Yeah, I can add to that too a little bit, because, well, APFs, they're not a thing anymore, but last year at least, during spring break, we were required or expected to have submitted all of our APFs during that spring break window. And that timeline was really, really difficult, as most of the people who run are upperclassmen and need that spring break to sort of decompress. So I think that expecting students to campaign or start campaigning and start planning that way during spring break is a little bit unfair, just because of how much time and how much emotional sort of mentality goes into that.
Mm-hmm. Any other discussion from the floor? Pro Tem Ferguson.
So there are a few friendly amendments that need to be made.
Don't think
they might need to be formal amendments if are not all authors here. Great. Love that. Okay. First, friendly amendment that would be made would be in Article 5, formal amendment. We'll just do them. Should we do them all at once or one at a time? All at once? Okay. First formal amendment would be to, in Article 5, Section 4, Part C, to add in incorrect language during in-person petitioning, so inclusion of the word in-person there. The next would be in So sorry. In Article 7, Section 2, Part B, it would be switched from Part B. Braden, what's your exact change there? So sorry.
Yeah, Pro Tem Jordana.
Add another one while we wait for Braden to figure out his that's being included in this. In Article 6, Section 9, subsection F, it'll be striked. It basically says the allocated budget shall not exceed $4,000. That is not currently in congruence with what's being spent. That includes what the marketing is, so we're just going to strike this section and fix the numbers.
Yeah. So in Article 7, Section 2, Part B, it says that you may only distribute campaign material prior to open campaigning period. Open campaigning meaning in-person campaigning. Because of the online campaigning period, we should switch that to the online campaigning period.
Alrighty. Yes. Oh. Okay. So just to be clear, there was a total of three.
And I will formally move that we vote on these 3 amendments. Can someone second that?
Second.
Okay, so that means that we would immediately move to a vote on these amendments. So,
point of order.
Yeah.
That was just so that we had a motion so that we can actually vote on these to be implemented.
Okay, so that wasn't a motion to vote. Okay. Alrighty. So these amendments are amendable and debatable and require a majority vote. So is there any further discussion on these amendments? Okay. Seeing none, we can move to a vote on the proposed amendment at hand. So all those in favor, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? Alrighty. With a vote of 27 to 0, the amendment passes. So now we're going to go back to the bill 2235 with these amendments, if everyone is clear with that. Okay. So now is there any further discussion on the bill with these amendments? Yes, Senator Jane.
So another issue that tends to come up during student government elections is election equity in terms of money. So when you, the budget for elections is already pre-assigned, and from what I understand, the PSG budget currently is in a lock hold, and we can't change that depending on how many tickets we get on the ballot. And if we are expecting more tickets this year, because our main goal seems to be to get more people, more students involved in Purdue student government, then reducing the donations to $250 was one of the ways to make it equitable. I personally think it should be reduced further down from $250 per person or per individual donor. Again, just in terms to make this more equitable and to make sure that, if students also do want to donate, they are able to do that, and it's not reliant on personal connections and family members.
Any discussion from the floor? Yes, Pro Tem Jordana.
Senator Jane, is that a formal amendment, or are you just wanting to discuss about it initially?
Sorry, what?
Is there a particular amount you have in mind of what you'd want it to go down to?
I would say like 75.
Senator Adams.
From my understanding, I feel like it was at 500. It was cut down in half. It's a cap. It's not preventing students who can only donate a few dollars from donating. I don't see the problem in allowing 250, especially when the entirety cap is 3,500. That's a lot of people spending $250 on your a lot of individual people spending $250 on your campaign if you were worried about like connections, I guess. So I think that 250 seems pretty fair. I think it was a good compromise, personally.
Senator Esquinas?
I agree. I think the 250 is fair. I could even see a little bit less than that, like 150 or 200. Although what I think is something that really should be considered going forward is planning our budget around the presidential election more. I know this year we talked about cutting reimbursements for senatorial elections because we always had that money left over. No one really spends money on Senate elections. But it's clear that people are spending a lot of money on presidential elections. So I think for next year, it would be really important for FA to incorporate that.
Pro Tem Dodonna?
Yeah, so both Lily, myself, and Braden in Internal Affairs had a long conversation about how do we tangibly increase the equity within elections. And I think that our determination was that the best way to do it would be taking small steps over a longer period. So this was a step that we thought would be a good step to take this year, and it's sort of within our transition documents, as well as the people who stay in this org, as well as communicating sort of the intentionality moving forward. I think it makes sense to sort of take smaller steps towards that direction when, like, we've already reduced it by half. I would be in favor of maybe a smaller reduction. I would agree with Senator Adams, maybe something, or no, Senator Skinnis, 150 to 200, but I wouldn't be as in support of something like 75.
Senator Jane?
So 150 to 200, the authors.
Not all authors.
Senator Ferguson, Pro Tem Ferguson, excuse me.
You're fine. I don't want to speak for all authors. I would be more in favor of something around the 150 to 200 range rather than the $75 range. One of the reasons why this was a compromise, not just a compromise, but a decision made, was to decrease this amount to promote networking within the elections. And I fully understand that most donations are coming from family members, and it does decrease the financial equity of elections, and it is a strong barrier to entry for some students, or a strong barrier to success for some students. That being said, there is something to be considered when it comes to the amount of money spent on elections does increase the amount of outreach that elections can have and increase the amount of voter turnout. So it's really a strong and hard decision either way on the best way to go about this.
Senator Merkel?
So if you agree that spending more money on the elections, helps the turnout, I agree with that as well. So I would like to propose raising the amount that a campaign can spend from $3,500 to $4,500 for presidential elections. Because every year we spend the same amount on elections, but we expect the turnout to get better somehow. It will get better if people can do more outreach, and especially if we have more tickets every year sharing the budget that we already allocate to SPSG. Those campaigns are going to need to raise more money themselves. So I think that they should be able to spend more as a maximum.
Point of order, is this a formal amendment being proposed?
I'm just opening it for discussion. I think it should be 4,500, but I'd like to hear others' thoughts as well.
Okay, we're gonna go to Braden first.
So I would be very happy with raising the amount. However, this is the compromise that we have come to. I'm happy with lowering the amount of individual contributions to keep that 3,500 number the same. Because though I do agree that the more money a campaign spends, the more outreach we can actually perform and the more public our elections will be, I do also agree that it may be easier to raise money if you already have a family network. And so the barrier to entry could be high for those that don't necessarily have a network of wealthy associates. And so this is, again, like Lily said, a long conversation that we have had. This is the culmination of a long conversation where this is the compromise we have come to. And so I would prefer to keep it exactly as is. Coming from the previous elections director, this is something that I would like to keep the same.
Our IA chair, Josh Mariani, is on the line, and he would like to say something.
Yeah, I would definitely be in favor if there was a way to have campaigns equitably raise more amount and then give that money back to the students. That would be ideal. From my conversations with past candidates, my understanding is only one campaign, presidential, vice presidential campaign last year, even raised above 3,000. So as it stands right now, with the fundraising period as it is, to raise that amount would just increase the inequity without actually raising the amount most people could raise for the campaigns.
All right. Pro Tem Ferguson.
I yield 2 minutes of my time to President Jensen.
Yeah, so I second Josh on this and Braden. To be completely honest, Izzy and I's campaign was the only one that was above 3,000, and we did hit the cap, but we were the only one to do that. And so I don't agree at all with raising the cap amount, while, like we agreed earlier, it does raise awareness for the campaign. I don't think that it's equitable to raise that amount. I think that the individual donor amount that we did decrease from 500 to 200 does increase that equity. And then last year, as well, to further increase that equity, we extended the fundraising period. And so we extended that, I think, by at least 2 weeks is what it was, to try to make that more equitable. So like Ellie said, each year we are taking steps to do so. But I think that it's smart to stick with how it is right now, to take that one further small step.
Senator Jane.
Yeah, I think that moving the total cap up for how much each campaign can spend on their campaign would bring up the same problem we had last year. However, I think that if that money were to be spent by the election committee into marketing PSG elections and getting the student body more involved in elections, that would sort of address Senator Merkel's concerns with student outreach. And so I think that if we had that money in the budget and we could spend that money, then putting that in the elections committee and using it for marketing would probably address these concerns.
Senator Esquinas.
I completely agree there. I think if we invest this money in the budget, it'll make a huge difference. I also just want to say I've been a voice in this from the beginning, saying that I'm just not generally happy with the timeline. I think campaigning should be longer. I think online campaigning should be longer, and there should be more opportunity for us to get the word out. I understand the sentiment that it's a lot for students, it's a lot for the people running. However, if you're really committed, you're going to be willing to campaign for longer. And the longer we campaign, the more students are going to find out, and the more people are actually going to vote. So that's just my perspective. I'm not proposing any amendments. I'm just making that known in terms of equity.
Mm-hmm. Would somebody like to allocate some time to our advisor? Pro Tem Dodona.
I yield 2 minutes of my time to the delightful Dr. King.
Thank you so much. I just want to acknowledge that the reality in my time here is that most students start getting their campaigns together in January. And so they are going from January until the time of voting. Now, with a new elections director starting to advertise and give more information and market about the election, that I think would do a great service to getting people out to vote. But making the campaign longer, y'all, we start losing people in January. And if you've been around long enough, you already know that.
Pro Tem Ferguson.
I yield 2 minutes of my time to newly appointed elections director, Evan.
Yeah, so with this upcoming election, I really want to focus on marketing. And if we can reroute some funds over to marketing, I think we can make that happen. And I think especially focusing on utilizing the comms committee within BOD and then bridging that gap within my committee and really marketing this election, I think can go a long way. So.
Would anybody like to yield some time to Treasurer Wiseman? Pro Tem Dodona.
I yield 2 minutes of my time to Treasurer Wiseman.
Thank you, Pro Tem Dodona. I've had a hard time following around what line items we're actually discussing, but I would like to point out In the cabinet tab, there is an election directors line item. That is typically where the tabling funds come out of. For example, the town hall and other tabling supplies. And it is up this year. Last year, we allocated $3,000 to the election director, and this year we did allocate $4,000 for general outreach and their discretion.
Senator Robinson.
So I would agree with Andrew's point in the thank you, in the sense that let's make this equitable and let's make it a little longer. I understand that we want to have marketing plans, but if there are no concrete plans in place right now, I don't understand the opposition against extending the campaigning period for maybe by a week. And I understand that we want to make things equitable, but at the same time, we have to realize that this is a campaign and it is to be, who can get out there the most, who can reach more students. So people's, drive to win is also incredibly important. So equity can only go so far is what I would like to say to that.
Pro Tem Tadana.
I'd like to sort of talk about the thing I was talking about money. I think applies here as well. I think that in terms of we have already extended the amount of time that people are campaigning by. Senator Mariani can correct me. I think it's about over probably a week more currently than it was last year. I think that we should make steady movements towards increasing it, but I don't think it makes sense without testing out the way that this operates to keep on extending it. And I think it's a very fair point to say that if there is nowhere right now for it to currently be extended, unless we completely shift the entire schedule, unless there's a massive fundamental change to the way the schedule currently looks, the only place that could go would be during spring break. And I would have to firmly agree with what Pro Tem Ferguson said. It doesn't make sense for us to put the responsibility on students who deserve a break, regardless. Both students who would be the targets as well as students who have to run it. I think it makes sense to sort of test out. We're already adding more time, see how this goes, and then talk in a more long-term conversation about increasing it. I think Martia made a really great point of this is already a really big commitment from this time, and I think it makes sense not to do it without testing out an already initial extension.
Mm-hmm. Senator Kirsch.
I would also like to add from conversations that we had in IA about potentially extending that time for the campaigning period. It was discussed from conversations that people had with people that had already went through the elections process, people that were running campaigns, that there was a lot of burnout associated with the amount of time that was already allocated for campaigning. And personally, I feel like it would be more effective to reach the campus if you had more effort going in toward a smaller period of time as compared to a longer period of time that people are not committing as much of their time and effort to because of that burnout factor. So that's something to consider.
Mm-hmm. Senator Jane.
Yeah, so a lot of these campaigns depend on volunteers. Most of these volunteers are other students, and the people running are also students. A lot of people here were associated with some or the other campaign last year. From my experience, at least, it required a lot of skipping class. It required a lot of just, sidelining all of your homework and everything for that entire week. It's already been extended to 2 weeks. And the fact that students were already doing all of that for 1 week and now will be doing it for 2 weeks. In addition to that, other students who you are campaigning to, who you are trying to get to vote, they were also complaining that they were being disturbed in libraries, they were being disturbed in coffee shops, they were trying to study, and a lot of the campaigns were trying to get them to vote. So there were a lot of complaints that time, and I think that if you extended it even further, then you'd have even more complaints from the student body, and you'd just have more complaints towards student government, more than we already do, which is not really what we're looking for when we say outreach. So,
Senator Silva.
I also wanted to add that we talked about extending the timeline, but the Constitution, it does say that the election should be held the third Sunday and following Monday and Tuesday after spring break, which is what we're following right now, and extending that would push that back.
Senator Merkel.
I think that by allowing campaigns to have a bit more time, they're not going to be doing the events every single day still, or multiple events every single day. If a campaign had an extra couple weeks, they could do an event every other day. What they're going to use a lot of that extra time for is the opportunity to share more social media posts, reach out to more people, they're not going to be doing an event every single day. They're not going to feel the need to go that hard. And if a campaign can't handle it, then they can't handle being president. So I would say, what do we lose by allowing a campaign to have time before spring break to campaign?
Senator Robinson?
I also want to point out the fact that we said we extended online campaigning to be a little earlier, but in Article 7, Section 6, B, the subtitle A, it says candidates may not reach out directly to students through online messaging sites, following students on social media platforms, or emailing students. So what was the point in extending the online campaigning if we're not allowed to actually engage with students, is the question I would ask.
Pro Tem Danetta.
So to answer that question, the intentionality is to allow information about the candidate's platform and background to get out there without that direct engagement. So it's giving more time for students to be able to look at what people are running on, who they are before voting. That was the intentionality between that.
Pro Tem Ferguson.
And I just want to again reiterate the fact that students, as much as we want them to engage with the elections and want them to engage with PSG, we need to balance that with the fact that students don't want to be bombarded with elections information and with PSG information for the entirety of the elections period. And if we're allowing candidates free reign of, they can email students, they can message students, they can post their social media everywhere that they can. While I'm not saying that it's a bad thing for like getting the word of the elections out there, it does put a bad look on PSG when students have continually expressed, hey, get this out of my face. Hey, I don't want to see this. Hey, this is... By allowing that, frankly, I would feel irresponsible as a student representative not to hear that from my constituencies and hear that they do not want to see that continuously and still push something through, despite the fact that I have to balance what I want to see as a PSG member and what I want to see, what my constituents do want to see.
Senator Robinson?
So why do we allow for online campaigning in the first place if we're not going to be able to access the students we want to reach?
Pro Tem Ferguson?
Again, I want to, like Ellie said, it allows for candidate information, candidate ideas to be distributed by the Elections Committee. The Elections Committee will have little flyers or whatever they decide on having that will say like, hey, follow these candidates here, but candidates themselves aren't allowed to, for lack of a better term, solicit voters to during that period.
Senator Bowman?
I apologize. I guess after kind of some of this, I've gotten a little confused. So I guess either Pro Temp Zona or Pro Temp Ferguson, if you could clarify kind of what, I guess, the scope of campaigns or just students running are allowed to do online, because I think it's gotten a little muddled.
Pro Tem Ferguson?
Claire, can I ask, or Senator Bowman, can I ask a clarifying question? During what part of the campaign period are you talking about?
I guess this would be during those, the 2 weeks.
Yes.
Thank you. So it's laid out that candidates can have an online presence, so they're able to have their social media, they're allowed to have their website during the election committee promotion period. They're then not allowed to like email students with this information. They're not allowed to go on Life at Purdue and follow everyone that also follows Life at Purdue, which may or may not happen during elections. They're not allowed to go there's a certain limit to what we can say that they are not allowed to do. I would say, like, if they're privately texting their, like, friends, that's different than they're not allowed to go into a group me and say, hey, follow me here, I'm running on this, this, and this. So really they're not allowed to directly outreach to large amounts of students individually, and that this allows the Elections Committee to have direct platforms that campaigns have created that they are allowed to then promote.
Okay. Our IA Chair, Senator Mariani, has something to add.
I think Lily put it wonderfully, but just to add on, it's to allow for there to be public resources about campaign platforms for students that are passionate or interested in the elections process to learn about at their own pace And so it's meant for students more so to outreach to and learn about campaigns than it is for campaigns to outreach to students, is maybe a better way to look at it.
Senator Merkel.
I think there's merit to what Senator Robinson is suggesting, because you can have a requirement that students can't like DM a bunch of people during that time, but at least allowing them to reach out to those students and engage with them helps. I had experience with this when I was campaigning a couple of years ago, and I put out a survey, and it was not campaign material, it just had my name on it, and it was before the official campaign period. And it was super helpful to gain people's perspectives on what they wanted to see in the campaign, but we lost 12% of our votes because of that, because our name was on it. And allowing campaigns to reach out to students for more time can better inform the ideas that they're campaigning on, and so that will resonate with students more during that campaign week.
Pro Tem Tanana.
Just some clarification. There is something within the timeline called campaign preparation, which does allow for sort of what Senator Merkel is talking about. The intentionality is if you want to talk to people on small scale, you're still allowed to within campaign preparations. It's just not allowed to be in big group settings. I think I can pull up the exact wording if you prefer. One thing I'm going to suggest, and this is just a suggestion, so no one has to take it, but I think it's clear that some of the things we're talking about won't be accepted as friendly amendments. So if people feel passionate about it, please make a formal amendment to it. I think it might help with the structure. You don't have to do it, but I think if people are passionate about these things, and if Lily and I aren't going to accept them, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be voted on. So please make an amendment if you feel strong on something and would like a Senate vote on it. I think that's sort of the point.
Senator Jane.
I'd like to revisit the idea of moving down from 250 to 150 per donor.
Would that be a formal amendment?
Yes, that's a formal amendment.
Alrighty.
Second.
Okay. This amendment is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. So do I hear any discussion at this time on the amendment? Senator Robinson.
I would be in favor of this if we increase the 3,500 limit mark.
Okay.
I don't know how other senators feel, but that's just an idea.
IA chair wants to say something.
Yeah. Sorry to have you keep switching on to Zoom. This is a question for Senator Robinson. I guess I'm a little bit confused. What would be the purpose of lowering the amount per donor, but raising the amount each campaign can spend, when in the past most campaigns haven't even hit the lower amount that they were previously allowed to spend?
Yeah, so there's this idea that Senator Marco has talked about with outreach, and if we're going to lower the amount that people can donate, wouldn't it only make sense oppositely to increase the amount that they can raise? Even though I understand that not every single campaign is going to meet that threshold, that doesn't mean that other campaigns can't. And I don't think that we should be limiting the potential of that when we haven't seen the effects of this proposed amendment take place, nor the kinds of people who are running and who can network. So that was the idea behind that. Mm-hmm. Did that answer your question?
Yes, Senator Mariani, you can answer.
It did, yeah. And I had raised my hand before you spoke up as well. I just want to say I would definitely be in favor of lowering the amount per donor. I do not think I would be currently in favor of increasing the total campaign expenditures, just to give my thoughts.
Okay. Senator Terrell.
I was just going to ask you to repeat the amendment. It's my fault for being late, but I just don't want to vote on something that I didn't properly hear. Sorry.
The proposed amendment is to lower the amount an individual donor can donate to a campaign from $250 to $150.
Pro Tem Dana.
I agree with what Senator Mariani is saying in terms of the amount. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, because if we're lowering tangibly, if we were going to increase it, I don't think anyone would be able to hit it. With the $500, one campaign was able to hit it. I don't think that without decreasing it to $150 would then allow anybody to ever hit that amount. So in my head, it doesn't really make sense to increase it when we're decreasing the amount, which I think would inevitably cause some sort of decrease in the overall total.
Senator Merkel.
these election rules make a lot of good changes, including extending the campaign period by a little bit. So it's reasonable to expect that some campaigns may plan to raise more than what we've seen in the past, where they were raising money to only spend over a few days.
Senator Dane?
The time has been increased mostly for social media, though. I don't know what money you're spending on there.
You can spend money on advertisements. There's a lot of digital marketing that you can spend money on.
Would somebody like to allocate some time to President Jensen? Senator Skinas?
I allocate as much time as President Jensen wants.
I just need like 5 seconds. I tried to do ads on Instagram last year and it didn't work because you're like not an official political, or it's like some political thing, but you couldn't advertise on Instagram, but just wanted to make that known. I tried to do that, it didn't work.
All right, Chair has another point to make. Senator Mariani?
Oh no, I feel bad. I like lost my train of thought. If a need was shown for students to have access to more money during the campaigns, then I would be in favor of raising it. But again, like 5 out of 6 campaigns last year, that's like 83-ish%, I think, did not even hit 3,000 campaign like money received from donations last year. And I can't imagine that's from lack of trying to get donations. Like, I don't think people are like, yeah, I'm going to cut it off here because I don't need any more money. I think campaigns would have taken any more money they could have gotten. So if it's this year, if all however many campaigns end up running hit that 35 max, even with like whether it's $250 or $150 per donor, then next year I would be in favor of raising it. But if we did it this year without knowing that, then it could allow for someone to raise much more money than the other candidates, and that would be unfair in my point of view.
Pro Tem Ferguson?
I just kind of want to get us back on track to, we're currently supposed to be discussing an amendment on lowering the single donor amount. I know that potentially has some contingencies, and so if an amendment upon this amendment would like to be proposed, then we can discuss that. But at this point, we should be discussing the reduction from $250 to $150. And I do have thoughts on that while I have you. I'm personally conflicted on this. I think that it could do good, but it could, something to be cognizant of, it could decrease the amount that could be raised, which could then decrease voter awareness because the amount of money people are able to spend is directly correlated to the amount of money, or the amount of money that people are able to spend is generally correlated to the amount that they are able to raise. And if they're not able to raise as large of an amount based on this lower amount, then that can hurt voter outreach. That being said, part of the reasoning that former elections director and current deputy chief of staff Johnson gave us for the reason for donations and the amount that you're able to raise often directly correlate to the amount that you're able to network if this amount is then lowered. So, despite my previous point and why I'm conflicted on this, if you have a lower single donor amount and are then able to network yourself better and be able to raise more money, then that also shows that you are an apt candidate for this position. So with all of that, those are my thoughts. And if anyone has more concrete ideas, I would love to hear them.
Former elections director? Direction.
Okay. So this is tough because I see that there's a ton of debate here. So after working the last election and being very heavily involved with all the other campaigns and how they specifically did their finances, how they ran their campaign, what tends to happen is that every campaign has a couple, very few big donors. And then the majority of their donations are smaller donations from people who could throw a few bucks their way. So, say under $25. That's not an exact number. That's something I'm just throwing out. but tends to be a couple big donations. I was okay with lowering this amount to 250, cutting it in half, because I see that it does increase the equity for people that may not have the network to raise $500 from a single donor. The problem with lowering it more is that it makes it a lot harder to hit that 3,500 number, and the more money you can spend, we all agree, the more outreach you can do. Events cost money, and so we're already dropping it by half. It would be best if we kept it at half to see how it goes. If people are able to raise that 3,500 pretty easily, then let's lower it more to see what we can hit before it starts causing a problem for outreach. But until then, it would be best to move in small steps because we are potentially wagering the outcome of an election off of $100. And I'm not for that at all.
Senator Brown.
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo some of the thoughts that were just brought up. I've kind of been sitting here letting the thoughts dwell in my head. I'm like, well, it could be good, it could be bad. What I've kind of come to the conclusion on for myself, I personally think that lowering it from 250 to 150, kind of like was said, would be too big of a step from 500, especially for, like was said earlier, with some of these maybe smaller campaigns. Maybe they are able to reach out to a lot of students, but they're not able to reach out to a lot of big donors. That being said, if they have a couple big donors, then that 250 would really help them. Whereas somebody who is able to reach out to a lot of maybe big donors, using that word, they would be able to get more of those 150 and reach that cap. Whereas everyone else who has those few would be much lower in terms of what they're able to spend, even though their reach out to the student body may be greater. So I personally am in favor of the 250 for the time being, going down from 500 to 250. So that way, if we say in the future, oh, well, it was easily met, then go down to 150.
Senator Escunas.
I move that we vote on this amendment.
Second.
Alrighty. So it's been properly moved and seconded to vote on this amendment. So all those in favor?
For ending discussion. Yes.
Oh, yes. For ending discussion. All those in favor, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. Alrighty, any abstentions? Okay. Let me count the people. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1 second here. Okay, with a vote of 22 to 2 to 0, the motion passes. So we will move to
order. This was a motion to
end discussion.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the motion passes. So now we will move to a vote. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I phrased it.
Sorry. All right. So now I guess my point of order question is: should we wait for everyone to come back from going to the bathroom and whatnot? Because I think we have at least one person still out.
Jack is a proxy.
So just okay.
He's been abstaining anyway. I'm not sure though.
Well, if everyone is comfortable, we can move to a vote. If it gets down to the wire where one vote really matters, we can revote. Okay. All right. So all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your name placards. All right. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. 2 seconds. All right, with a vote of 1 to 22 to 3, the amendment fails. So we will be acknowledging Bill 2235 without the last proposed amendment. Any discussion now on the bill with the previous amendments and without this last amendment? Okay, seeing none, we can now move to a vote on Bill 2235. So all those in favor, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Okay. Now would you please all mark that in SharePoint? Okay, with a vote of 24 to 2 to 0, Bill 2235 passes. Congratulations, IA. All right, do I hear any new business at this time? Senator Brown.
Motion to bring up Bill 2236.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2236, the LIFT pilot program funding approval request. This bill is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. We will start with discussion from the authors of the bill and then move into discussion from the floor. So would any of the authors wish to speak? Yes.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll have Claire talk for just a second, and then I'll talk again. But everyone, this is Claire Foster. She'll introduce herself and kind of explain why she is here and why she's interested in this as well.
Hi everyone, I am Claire Foster. I'm a senior here at Purdue. I'm in the Health and Human Sciences, but early in the spring semester I originally reached out to LIFT looking to start a program here at Purdue in hopes of having a subsidized LIFT ride service. I was looking at the night ride service, so that is kind of what we have pursued. I, over the summer, saw that PSG was creating a similar program, so I decided to reach out, and then we decided to combine forces. And yeah, that's where we are at right now.
Yeah, so LIFT, or I guess Claire has been so helpful during this with getting us connected directly to LIFT. She already had connections within the company, and so we were able to be seamlessly contacted with them, and so we thank Claire for that, and then all her help with the program as well. So a couple questions that had been asked in Senate, as well as some additional info for you all. So, well, one, you guys all have the bill as well as supplemental information on Slack. It's kind of just a layout and an overview of that bill. That has the geofence and kind of the breakdown for everything. It's a little bit easier to read than the legislation. And so some of the, or I guess some questions surrounded why the change from 950 students to 2,000 rides a month. And so that change was just surrounding IU's program. So when we looked at our program, we had 950 rides, or 950 people at 4 rides a month, and so that's relatively 3,600 rides a month. And then Sean was in this meeting, so he can talk a little bit more about it in a second. But IU's program only has 1,600 rides a month, so our question was, are we overkilling it with 3,500? And then we switched it to 2,000 rides a month so we can target the whole student body population instead of just those 950 students, and maybe get a higher utilization out of that. You guys can see the sponsors on the bill as well, and so we have representation from all over campus as well as other campuses. So those are the student body presidents from a few Big Ten schools. Some of them have this program and they strongly recommend it. Other support that's not on the bill that came from meetings this week are from Jeff Stefanczyk. He is the Associate Dean of Students and over the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities and strongly believes in this bill, as well as Leslie Charters, the Director of Student Legal Services. Another one that I've kind of been, I guess it happened yesterday, and I wasn't able to tell a ton of people yet until now. So we have full support from Keen Red Elk, who is the Director of Logistics and the head of parking and transportation and the full support of parking and transportation. In addition to their support, they want to aid in advocacy for the continuation of the program. And so Keen himself said, when you are in these rooms advocating for funds, if you are doing that, I want to be right beside you guys advocating with you. And then furthermore, they offered to manage the program or assist to manage the program at an administrative level. And then future conversations have been talked about for parking and transportation being that fiscal agent if we're going to go with like an SFAB grant in that aspect. Does anyone, I guess, Sean, can you talk as well about why it was changed from 950 students to 2,000 rides if I missed anything?
Do I need yielded time? Direct question. Doesn't need time. Someone.
I'll yield Treasurer Wiseman 2 minutes of my time.
So in these meetings with Lyft, they had 24 different ways and parameters you could add on the program, including geofences, straight subsidations, percentages, the time limitations. It's very customizable, and we had this approach that we thought was good with the starting with the small pilot and just seeing the interest there, but then the lovely people in the business office and the fiscal administrators, the people who work with numbers for a living, just had some different ways of calculating and looking at it that we felt were better, that we could potentially reach more students with this program at the same or maybe even a lower cost.
All right, I got more updates for you guys. I'm going to talk a lot during this thing. I'm so sorry. So I think during caucus, Izzy had mentioned, or I guess we've been mentioning financial support from Student Life and Beth McCuskey, and so that support was approved as of, I think it's 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. And so we do have their financial support within the bill and within the program. I talked to Senator Merkel briefly about this outside. And so with that additional financial support, we are hoping to expand the program. And so not spend less of PSG's money. We're just hoping to expand the program, whether that be further rides out of the month, or further rides a month, a higher discount, or expanding that to all 7 weeks. And so, like Sean said, this program is very customizable and able to be changed at any point in time. And so we're going to assess it on a monthly basis. So after that first month, if we should increase the rides or should increase the discount or should increase the days that we offer this service, we will.
Senator Jane.
How much support did these outside organizations provide, and which organization was it? Was it or Beth McCuskey or a combination?
15,000. From Vice Provost McCuskey.
Pro Tem Dodonna.
I've got a lot of questions to ask. So I guess I have some questions on sort of the functioning of the program as a whole. So I know IU's program is done via a website, a website on IU's page that talks about this. What exactly is the marketing plan for PSG to get this information out there to students, particularly when it's currently not being run by a university official? So I'm imagining that can't look like a website. So what does that look like? And then what does it look like from, is there a distinct plan on how that marketing ends up going? Secondly, I have a question about some of the distinctions between the initial plan and this new plan. So from my understanding is that with the initial plan of about being 950 students for 10 rides for 3 months, that was about 9,500 rides. We're now going to 6,000 rides in that same period, and that seems like a substantial decrease without a decrease in the monetary contributions. So I'm curious on those choices being made. Additionally, I'm a little concerned I have a question about why the PSG member number was chosen. I understand, PSG members are students and I want them to be able to have access to these resources, but in terms of it being a fair trial run for student population, I'm not sure why this number was picked, considering if you think about 150 PSG members making up about 40,000 undergraduate students. That is like 0.3% of the student body, while like this consideration would be a lot higher of a percentage of the student body being made up by PSG students. So if it's supposed to be a trial run to show the university's success, why would it, like an inconsistent number for the demographics of the university, be picked for the PSG part? And then additionally, I know that last year a survey went out about the Uber Lyft program by PSG. Do you guys have the results of that survey? It was something that was worked on last year, and I wanted to know if you looked into it. Sorry, I know a lot. Oh, I have one more thing. I'm so sorry. I'd like to disagree with what Senator Merkel said previously. I would feel a lot more comfortable in supporting this program if there was some money left over in cabinet discretionary rather than giving away, basically, in my mind, a huge cushion area for things that we might want to dip into. So if there's being money offered by other programs, I think at least some of that should cover what some of PSG is paying in order to at least let us have some more money in the cabinet discretionary for initiatives that senators or other board directors want to utilize. That's just a thought I wanted to add.
Senator Skinnis.
So I want to address the middle question about oh, why am I blanking now? About PSG limits. So I will take responsibility for bringing that up because when FA met last, I mentioned that I had a problem that there's nothing stipulating that there was a limit on PSG use. This wasn't meant to be like an improportional way of letting PSG use it. It was like actually meant to be a cap, so it just wasn't all PSG using it. And I mean, my personal opinion is I would be okay with just like saying PSG can't use it to completely get rid of that. Although the other side is it would be good to have a little bit of inside experience with the program because there's a little bit more direct access. It's easier to find out issues quickly if somebody within PSG has that issue. So I would also, maybe it's an even further reduced number than that, but the point of it was not to like allocate rides, it was to limit rides.
Pro Tem Ferguson.
Can I ask how PSG member usage is being monitored? I just don't know logistically how that's going to work.
I will try to answer all the questions. Ellie, I'm sorry, I didn't write down your first question. I was trying to listen to all of them, so if you can repeat it afterwards, that'd be great. But I'll try to answer most of them. Lily, to touch on your question really quick, I believe we get a list of all the emails that are used throughout the month. And so while it would be some tedious work to look through that and whether that be kind of relate that to our roster and see how many rides people are getting. I think we can take people off the program. So like, let's say that I use it like 5 times and we can be like, Andrew, you can't use it for the rest of the semester, right? And so that's how the most I see it being able to be monitored. But like Andrew said, it was just kind of meant to be that limit to where we're able to experience it for ourselves. But then not just have PSG use it. As we're all sitting here, we understand that it is coming next semester, whereas some students may not be able to have access to that information. As far as the survey that went out last year, I don't have access to that information or to that survey, but I will try to gain access to that, and we can look at that as well. And then on the comment about the cabinet, like leaving money in the cabinet discretionary, Izzy and I both still have $2,500 in each of our budgets and are more than willing to distribute that money throughout PSG, whether that be within Senate or within cabinet or within BOD and specific directors. But like you said, we did want to leave some money inside of there, so we could do that. And then if you have your first question again, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, it was more about how is this being distributed to students? What is the marketing plan on getting it out there?
We'll have a couple different people speak on this one. One specifically is every single academic college has agreed to display this throughout their college and send emails to their respective students. And then as well as the other departments on campus that support this program have agreed to send out information. Purdue Police Department also knows about this program and said that they would also speak on the program. Let's say that they are driving around one night and they see a student that is walking home that maybe shouldn't be walking home or maybe are walking home by themselves. They said that they would be more than willing to stop on the side of the road and say, hey, you do have this program. So there's that. I know Claire has some stuff to talk about Lyft promotion on campus, specifically at the corporate level. And then I think Braden has some about the PMA marketing competition. Claire, do you want to go first?
So specifically with the Lyft organization, they have really done a nice job communicating with us and really teaching us the program itself and kind of how to break it down. When it comes to marketing, they are very experienced with this because they've been working with hundreds of universities. Specifically, they talked about having like a big opening night at like one of our popular bars. So for example, like Harry's, maybe something like that to kind of really start off the program strong. But then we need to step back and consider like the pilot program as well and kind of how we want to make forward with that. But specifically the emails, the Instagram posts, everything like that is in consideration and forward with at this time. But Lyft, we are in the contract process, discussing with them. But I think moving forward, as we confirm the program, if that is something that we wish to do, they will then kind of guide us through the marketing strategies of how to appropriately go about that situation to distribute the information properly to students to make this make it a successful pilot program to move forward with it.
Yeah, additionally, Sean, correct me if this was wrong. Sean has seen the contract, I have not, but in the contract it says that Lyft as a corporation will come and table on campus. And okay, that is correct, sweet. And so they themselves will come to campus and table. So that's one way to promote that as well. Braden will talk on the marketing competition in a second. And then as far as the webpage is concerned, I've already started to build that Lyft page on our own PSG website. I kind of thought about, yes, all these universities have theirs through the official transportation website, but we are at Purdue University, and usually that doesn't move quickly. It's also not a university program, as you said, so that will be one of the tabs on our Purdue Student Government website. Then Braden can talk on the marketing competition.
So for everyone's awareness, we heavily expanded our communications committee just very recently. Sorry, Lily, did you need?
I yield, Chief Deputy Chief of Staff. Ooh, that took me a second. 2 minutes of my time.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So again, we have heavily expanded our communications committee from 4 members to it's a little above. It's like 11 now, and so they are now our biggest committee. Coming from that, the way that we brought these committee members in is by holding a competition through the marketing school at Craner. And they submitted plans for how to better do Purdue student government marketing as a whole. Part of the submissions were how they would market a Lyft program. And so I don't have the specific notes of what they planned on doing, because again, it was in its infancy when they started planning the plan, sorry for the phrasing. But I will say that one of the things that we talked about in the meeting today was marketing in high-risk areas such as bars around Chauncey, and having flyers, having people down there, especially during the opening, where we've got people there that can say, hey, this is available, please sign up, please utilize it, and then being able to retroactively go in using the emails that we will be collecting to ask, is this something that people want continued? And so we will have a way to survey retroactively about what is happening, and we will have a heavily expanded committee which is able to market this to the fullest extent so that it's utilized correctly.
Senator Jane?
So one of my main concerns with this marketing program is that people aren't going to know exactly how much of their total ride is covered through this program. It's $5. My mind goes to the Safe Walk program, which has some of the same things where PUPD advertises it. It's on student ID cards, and yet people are shaky on what exactly that program does. And so my concern is that even with all of these things, people won't know exactly what this LIFT program is going to do. And another question I had was that I think President Jensen said that the money, sorry, I don't remember the exact quote, but that the money won't come back to cabinet discretionary funds, and that it would still remain a PSG initiative, even though Beth McCuskey agreed to fund some part of it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm just kind of confused on the question. Beth McCuskey added.
Because we were told that if we get some of these outside organizations involved, then it would be removed from the hands of PSG.
I just want to clarify what I said was all the money that we allocate with this bill, like we're not going to ask for any more. There's no guarantee that this money's coming back ever. If it does, then it does, and it would go back to cabinet discretionary, but there's no guarantee that it ever will.
Yeah, that's kind of what we said in the bill, is that up to that amount can be spent on that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all of it will be spent. It's kind of a confusing language in that, but with Beth McCuskey's money, that's more of just an addition to the program rather than a subtraction from our funds, if that is understandable.
Pro Tem Tadana.
So then, just to clarify, the addition of Dr. McCuskey's funds doesn't decrease the amount that we'd spend. So if there was an amendment made to decrease the amount we spend on this, it would still be able to operate with those funds as well, correct? I guess I guess I'm confused about, we're initially allocating $30,000 to this program from PSG, but does the program not operate solely with just $30,000? Like, that's not operatable, but with $45,000 it is? I guess I'm confused on the totality of the program. What is the all-in cost, and then where is that breakdown coming from? Who needs to provide that money in order for it to operate?
Yeah, so it does operate, or it can operate on just the $32,000 that we have. The extension and additional money would lead to an extended month of the program, and then even additionally onto that, extended discounts or extended amount of rides. Does that make it a little more clear? Right.
Senator Adam.
Does the extra money that we're getting mean that there's a higher likelihood of us getting some of this money back? Like, I guess, is that kind of, like, are we going to use that extra money that we're getting first, and then like try and use that money, and then use the money that PSG put into it, and then hopefully get some of the money back that PSG put into it? Is that something that we could look into doing, just so that we are trying to at least, like, I don't know, keep some of the PSG money for other things?
I don't think so. The PSG funds are gone at the end of the year. And so we're told by the university and by Sean and by all the past treasurers to use the money. And so we're going to use the money as best as we can. And so just as big as a program as can be is what it will be.
Senator Merkel.
I think it's important to keep the language how it is, the up to, because there could be more funding that comes in or not. We don't know that yet. So it's important to keep it how it is, and that, you know, if there isn't a lot of extra funding that comes in, but still a good amount, like the 15 that Andrew mentioned earlier, that's no reason to decrease, you know, what we put in. If we want to do this, we should do it right, and we should make it a successful first go at it, so that we can more successfully secure more funding, so that it gets more attention, so that it's a bigger deal, and that people notice it more if the discount's bigger or if they get more rides. That's why I think this language is important as it is, and what Vice President Weber and President Jensen proposed earlier is the good way to go with this.
Pro Tem Tadana.
So My thought process on this is sort of, at least one of my hangups on this legislation is the lack of money left over in capital discretionary. And I know President Jensen and Vice President Weber have some money left over in their President's initiative and Vice President initiatives, but in terms of anything somewhat substantially larger, if the small grant program gets bigger, if there are other things that like directors want to do or senators want to do with money, it does sort of tie our hands a little bit, which is okay, but it does give me some hesitancy with this, particularly when we already have a program that is already bigger than IU's program that is being funded by the university, from my understanding. I don't know what the purpose would be in making it even bigger without utilization data, when we could have some money left over in capital discretionary for other initiatives. Why not decrease what we are currently allocating by $5,000 or $6,000, which is still a bigger program with Dr. McCuskey's gift to PSG. We get more information on utilization. We have conversations. It's still bigger than the one that, from my understanding, the one that IU currently has. I think it makes sense to keep it not small, but not as big while we wait for more information to come in.
Just a quick thing. I'd be more than willing to take less out of cabinet discretionary and put more of my money into it if that line item I guess you would like the line item better of my $2,500 inside of the cabinet discretionary, would be more than happy to do so. Izzy's free to do whatever she wants, but I would love to keep it the exact same amount of money, but we can pull from a different line item if you would like.
It's not inherently the line item, it's the fact that this ties up so much money, and that if there is a decrease in how much money it ties up, it makes me a lot more comfortable allocating this. So that's more of my perspective.
Senator Esquinas.
Minutes to our to Dr. King.
Oh, thank you. I just want to make note over the, and you all have access to all the budgets of the past, but you all have spent lots of monies just on a speaker for an hour, $20,000, $10,000. I personally attended a $60,000 concert. Now that was in 2012, but it was funded by PSG. So just giving, this is, yeah, it was the Roots. It was a great concert, but not worth it. You spent a lot of money on it back then. But want to just make sure of, and we were talking about numbers you spent on Mina and whoever these other speakers are, the guy who, the one show, Inventions, I forgot his name. You know who I'm talking about? I'm looking at you. He's a black guy, bald head. Nobody remembers. Anywho, he was a lot of money. He has a brand of clothing and all these things. What is it? Damon John. What's the Shark Tank? Yes, you spent a lot of money on these people for 1 or 2 hours. Just $20,000. Thinking about a program that could last for months and the impact that it could have. Just want to bring that comparison. You all can look at your own past budgets.
Senator Esquinas.
So I'd like to echo that, and I'd also like to say that my philosophy with a lot of what I do is looking at things in specific and measurable ways, and this is the most specific and measurable way we can see impact in the student body. We can literally see the individual members who are using our money, and I'm all for that. This money will spread far, and it will last a long time. I know that it's seen as an issue that we're reducing our budget, well, not reducing, but we're spending so much of our budget right now. But I've also seen a lot of PSG money go unspent. So I'm fully in support of all this money going now.
Pro Tem Ferguson.
As someone who has also seen a lot of PSG money either gone unspent or been spent on something that students don't want, that is what leads me to hesitancies about this program, as well as just more questions about general utilization of this program. One of the main reasons why I have hesitancies about speakers is because people don't show up to them when we spend money on them. And so with this program, I really do worry, without data that proves utilization and proves that students want this program, that spending this money would be very similar to spending money on a, not the exact same, but would be similar to spending money on a speaker that people aren't going to show up to. And so I just have general questions of what data do we have on whether or not this will be utilized at our campus, or what are the rates of utilization at other campuses, and just generally, why are we choosing the scope of the program that we are without that utilization data?
Senator Terrell?
Well, maybe we should. Does someone want to like answer that? Because my question is completely unrelated, but will
We can
will
come
be
back.
long-winded and probably spark a discussion. So I'll just like suck it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator Esquinas?
So I think seeing how much programs like this are used at other universities and just how common this program is at other universities is a really telling sign of how students will use it. It's almost a standard now for universities of our size to have some sort of subsidized Lyft program. And even looking back farther than Lyft, universities were creating programs like this through rental car agencies to try to create some sort of safe ride program. So I think this is a really important program. And I mean, I don't know about you, but anytime I've brought this up to someone, I've only seen excitement from them. I haven't heard a single undergraduate student say, this doesn't look good.
Claire?
Yeah, speaking as a student body, I think it's important to recognize, especially from Lyft, like they have the resources and data to provide us from other universities, like specifically in the Big Ten, that are already using this. They've already provided like the Purdue data that they've pulled directly. Currently, we have total riders of 34.4K, and then we have total active riders of 8.8K. So that is current data that we have, and as we progress through this program, we'll be able to continue to receive more. So I think as we are considering budget, I know that's important for you guys to make sure that you have budgets for other PSG opportunities, but we do want to make sure that we're having a budget where we are getting a diverse like original pilot program. So if we have a smaller budget, we're not going to be able to see that true data. So I know that's been previously discussed, but kind of really starting off on that strong foot, that's what we're here to do. I think we need to keep in mind like the benefits of this program, how it could actually really make a change on this campus, and it's something that I've been wanting to see for a while, and I think this is a direct way that we can implement, make a change here. So.
Sorry, Senator Mariani has been waiting for a little.
I'm also starting a new conversation, so I can go after Sydney.
Does anyone have anything more to add to this specific conversation? Senator Jane?
So to clarify, I think that while no one is disagreeing that this is a good program and would be useful for students, the main confusion all of us have is sort of where exactly this money is going to be spent and like how that breakup is going to happen now that we have extra money too from Beth McCuskey, and just more clarity on the specific line items of where this is going, I think is what's required. Because no one's disagreeing that this is a useful program and is super helpful for students. We just want more clarity.
Yeah, I'll break it down from like a total and then kind of subtract it from there. So total program funds after this is allocated is 48,000, and so starting out we're doing 2,000 rides a month at $5, and so that's $10,000 a month, and so at that rate we can go for 4 months, and then with that additional 8,000 that leaves us room for expansion, whether that be with days amount, whether that be with ride amount, or whether that be with discount amount. Does that help break it down?
Pro Tem Tadana?
I think it makes sense without as much. The intentionality of this program, at least from my understanding, is to gather data and have a better understanding of students' utilization of this. That's at least what I've gathered from most of my conversations with people on this. So in my mind, I think it makes more sense to allocate this initial 3-month program that we are sort of laying out in this bill, and then consider the element that student life is bringing in, and still sign up for those 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, that money left over in the cabinet discretionary has shown that the students are utilizing this, then we can allocate it afterwards. We already are developing a program, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is bigger than the one that IU is currently operating from their own like on a month-by-month basis, is bigger than the one that IU is currently operating for their student body. So in my mind, it makes sense to keep at the scale it is with that $30,000, decrease the amount that we're putting in considering the support that we've gotten from student life. And that doesn't mean that this money cannot be allocated to this. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that let's get the data, let's get utilization rates, let's get student interest, let's see how many people we can gather from all of this marketing elements, and then make a decision based on that. I think that is what makes the most amount of sense, at least to me.
Well, I'll just say my personal understanding of the program is, as of right now, like Andrew said, it can operate under this, how we have it laid out in the bill. The addition that comes from student life is just going to make it better, so make it so that more students can use it. That's my understanding of that. Pro Temp Ferguson?
I would argue that even if the addition from student life would allow for more students to use it, we don't know if those students are going to use it. I would actually have to disagree with what Senator Askunas said earlier when he stated that when speaking to students, he hadn't gotten any negative feedback, because I have. Personally, I brought the original version of this bill that I had received to our Agricultural Council Executive Board just to garner feedback, because I wasn't for sure how I was feeling about the bill. And I asked around, like, how many of you would utilize this bill? And out of everyone in the room, no, not a single one of them raised their hands. And that's what really is leading me to a lot of hesitancies about utilization without more extensive data points that provided to me.
Senator Robinson?
Yeah, I just want to say that I was also worried about the money, and there's not a lot of data backing this up, but if there are a bunch of other Big Ten campuses who are doing this and they've seen success with this program and they've had these programs for much longer than we have, I say we might as well go for it. And if the president, and vice president, and cabinet are all in agreement to spend this amount of money, I think it's a moot point to keep discussing how much money it is and the data that's not behind it, because we're not going to know until we actually do the program. And it seems like for a majority, although as Lily said, there are some people who don't want this program, I'm sure a majority of students will enjoy this program who do utilize it, and might even be able to expand it through word of mouth.
Okay, still on the topic. Still on the topic, everyone, just to clarify? Okay, Senator Terrell.
I guess I'm just going to put everything in one, so that way I can just say my piece. I don't know if maybe I missed something at caucus, but do we have actual data from other top 10 universities to like show the success rate? Or are we just saying other top 10 universities have had success without actual data for that as like my first thing? And the second thing is just to kind of echo what Lee said, I've been running this by like organizations that I'm in, and there's been pretty mixed of a reaction. So just as like a warrant, like I guess the College of Ag Student Council like had some opinions about it, as well as the Student Education Council. So while I do agree that students would be maybe in favor of it, some of them, it's definitely not going to be unanimous from what we can tell just by asking like 30 people. So if someone wants to answer the top 10 question, thank you.
Brittany, about this? Oh,
I yield 2 minutes of my time to Deputy Chief of Staff Johnson.
Thank you. So I know a large part of this is money and being able to utilize this money for something else. The thing that I would like to bring up is that BOD holds most of the events and the events that cost money. We've got money. We're gonna make it to the end of the semester. We'll probably have some extra. And if we end up spending all of it somehow, which never happens, we also have that little bit that's left in presidential and vice presidential discretionary. And so we're good on the money aspect. I don't think that spending this is going to put a strain on BOD's finances, which tends to be the ones that hold the events.
Senator Kirsch?
I would say, like, I know you're saying that there's people that are saying that they wouldn't use it. I know my personal surrounding, people that I surround myself with in college, this would be like almost like a game changer for a lot of people. Like I myself lift like basically every single weekend. So I can imagine that it would be extremely helpful. And also like within the bill, there's already like a limited amount of rides that we can provide discounts for. And so it's not necessarily meant for the entirety of the student population. I think like the amount of people that would use it, it would subsidize enough rides that it'd be totally worth it and extremely beneficial for the campus.
Senator Merkel.
Yeah, I think there will be people who would say, no, I probably wouldn't use that. But if you make it available, they would use it if it was offered to them and it was like a done deal. And if you're thinking about voting no on this because you think that if we get extra money, like the money that Andrew's already secured, we should spend less, you should consider that. What would we spend that money on? You know, if you're concerned about impacting students, think of if this prevents like 5 sexual assaults. That's pretty worth it in my mind. If you're concerned with PSG marketing and branding, how this is our reputation on campus, think about that. Anytime a student uses this, someone's walking home and they're concerned, they're looking over their shoulders, they're walking through one of those dark parts of campuses where the buttons don't work, they know that the Purdue student government subsidized Lyft app will get them home safe. So this is why I think we should support this amount in full spent on this program.
Senator Hampton.
Well, I understand your support. I do want to first say that I think the elephant in the room is that this program is very much targeted towards individuals that are over 21 and can go to the bars, which is not all of our student body. I would also like to say that my understanding of this program is this program will not remain in the hands of, or ideally not remain in the hands of Purdue student government. So the fact that we already have, and I commend you so much for already having so much support from the administration, but simply based on the fact that we already have this support from the administration, this would enable us to save some of our money. And maybe give this program 2-3 months to kind of get off the ground, get the data. I love data. I think that that's only going to bolster this program more. And I do understand that we usually don't spend all of our money. But if we're looking at almost getting closer to March or April, then we could consider dumping the rest of our funds that we have not already spent into this program, which I would have no problems with. But I think a quote that a mentor of mine says is, I'm not particularly religious, but he says, I believe in God, but all others must bring data. So in this case, I say, show me the data, and then we can talk.
I will say, like, in response to your point that it's directly targeted to people 21 and over, I disagree with that simply because I've had exams from 8 to 10 since my freshman year, so walking home alone isn't truly ideal. There's not too many women in my major, so walking with somebody is usually kind of hard to find. So I think the program can be used in many other facets other than just surrounding bars and nightlife.
Yeah, likewise. I am so glad you said some of those things. And Sydney, I know we haven't touched on your stuff, so I'll touch on it real quick for you. Just with the data part, the Lyft gives us data from other universities, but not specifically the utilization rates of those. The data that they give us doesn't really surround that. But the data that they give us from our own university is over that 6-month period, there were over 34,000 rides. And so seeing that data and seeing that the active riders are 8.1 thousand, and that is the data that we're going off of. Those rides, that's 2,000 rides a month, that's 8,000 rides. That's hitting a significant amount of the population. In addition, the reason that we're wanting to expand this program is so it's not just on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night. Like I said at the beginning, we want to expand this program to 7 days a week so that we can target everyone else as well. We want to target all of campus. We don't just want to target 21 plus. Like Izzy said, people have exams. We want to target them. We want to give them those opportunities. Like Mason said, people are just walking home, right? Some people don't feel safe walking on campus, and that's not fair, right? We don't like that, so we want to be able to provide that. As far as what Anna said about programs that kind of leave PSG, right? Like, we have programs that started in PSG that left, right? So a long time ago, we had student legal services that started from PSG. We have CAPS after hours hotline that also started from PSG, but are no longer in our budget line items. We have the immigration attorney that originally started in PSG, but are no longer in our line items. For me, it doesn't matter if it's in our line items. For me, it's if we are benefiting the student body.
Senator Jane.
Yeah, just sort of backing Senator DeDonna and Senator Hampton. I think that we're willing to spend more money if we have data backing what we are spending money on. And that's not to say that this can be another bill maybe next semester after we have some more information. And regarding what I said earlier about uncertainty, we still don't know where exactly we're going to try to spend that money. I understand it's to expand the service, but in order to expand it fruitfully and in order to know what days and times people are actually going to need this lift service, we need information. We need data. We need to know how much of that students are going to need and students are going to use. So I think that just initiating it, letting it go for a little bit, and then revisiting it would allow us to have more information and put more money into it if it's successful and if students are using it as much as we think they're going to.
Would anybody like to allocate some time to Press Secretary Chris?
I'll give 2 minutes of my time to Press Secretary Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I just want to clarify, this is a pilot program, so this is how we're getting data that we will use in the future to decide how to better justify and design the program. So in order to do that, we need the pilot program, so we need to spend money. And honestly, looking at the budget, and Sean just had it pulled up, but Senate discretionary has only spent, I think it was a little over $100 this semester. So there's still a lot of money left over in other places. So we will always find money to spend on different initiatives if it's not in cabinet discretionary.
Senator Kirsch.
I would like to say for the people that are looking for the data, you were just given the numbers of the amount of Lyft rides that were ordered at Purdue campus. And so using that, you can very confidently be assured that if this is well advertised, which is obviously the goal of the program, then it's going to be utilized. So I can't see a negative to this.
Pro Tem Ferguson.
I actually have a question about that data point that I've had for a minute. Of those 8,100 active riders and of the total rides that occurred, how many of those are within the parameters within the geofence as well as within the specific time frame that we're looking at for this pilot program?
Yeah, so that was specific Lyft. When we had a discussion, I think that meeting was a month ago, they pulled from the last 30 days, I believe. So that was recent to current date. But yeah, the geofence is that the geofence that we provided was the active riders within that same perimeter. So we're pulling exactly those numbers that would be used for this program. Does that answer your question, or do you want me to go a little more detail?
Just to clarify, during the time frame as well, from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m.?
Yeah, that was the same.
Only Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
I don't know if they exactly provided, but I know those were the main. I would assume that they would look at that because that was the night ride we've discussed with them, so
Senator Esquinas.
Point of order. We have passed 45 minutes on this topic. And so I move that, I don't want to open anything up because we've opened up a lot. But we either need to vote or call for a recess or something.
Second.
That's not a motion, y'all.
Yes.
Okay. I move that we end this discussion.
Second.
Alrighty. So, parliamentarian, can you please help me kind of guide this? If we If we end discussion now, we can vote to extend it with the 2/3 majority, correct? Or is that?
Can you repeat that one more time?
If we're voting to end discussion, can there also be like a vote to extend discussion with the 2/3 majority? How is the vote to end a discussion a majority vote?
It is a majority vote. If you approve to end discussion right now, you would have to go straight into the votes. And right now it's the main motion, so you'd be voting yes or no to pass or fail the motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so.
Point of order, this is non-debatable, isn't it?
The previous question is not amendable or debatable, correct?
Thank you.
So, all those in favor of ending discussion now, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. All right, and any abstentions? All right. Hold, please. All right, so with a vote of 19 to 5 to 4, the motion passes. So that means we will move straight into a vote on this bill. Okay? All right, so all those in favor of Bill 2236, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Alrighty, with a vote of, please enter that into SharePoint. I caught myself. Alrighty, with a vote of 22 to 1 to 5, Bill 2236 passes. Congratulations. All right, perfect. Any other new business? Senator Terrell.
I want to motion for a 5-minute recess.
Any seconds? Second. Does that mean we have to vote on it? Alrighty. All those in favor, please raise your name placards. Right?
Point of order, is this debatable? Parliamentarian.
Are we moving for a recess?
Yes.
It is not debatable.
So all those in favor, please raise your name placards. Okay. All those opposed, same sign. Oh man, you guys. Any abstentions? Okay, with a vote of 4 to 20 to 4, the motion fails, so we will be moving on. Senator Esquinas.
I move to bring up Bill 2237.
Second.
Alrighty, it has been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2237, the reallocation of the 2022-2023 budget to create a HEME line item. This bill is amendable and debatable and requires a majority vote. We will start with discussion from the authors of the bill and then move into discussion from the floor. Senator Dodona. Pro Tem Dodona. I just did that twice.
So what this bill is in essence doing is it's a really simple bill, but in essence, in order to reallocate any part of our budget, it requires a bill. So that's why you guys get to see it. Something happened, miscommunication, issues with the budget. HEME wasn't given their own allocated budget, and it was something that they disliked, and I know stresses them out. So in order to sort of make us up and make sure that they're included in our budget, because they're a committee who's putting on events and deserves to have their own budget, it was decided to basically give them that one. It's taking from Board of Director discretionary and putting it into the HEME account. I know Chief of Staff Regby and President Jensen agreed to that amount, so it was sort of a simplistic bill of just giving HEME their own budget to pull from as a recognized Board of Directors committee.
Would anybody like to allocate some time to Deputy Chief of Staff? Senator or Pro Tem Dodona. Oh my God.
I give 2 minutes of my time to former election director Dawson.
Please. That's all.
Okay. All right, any other discussion at this time? Okay, seeing none, we can move to a vote on Bill 2237. So all those in favor, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, please put that into SharePoint. And while you do so, I will let you know the vote was 28 to 0. So Bill 2237 passes. Yay, team. Alrighty. As you guys are still inputting your votes, I would recognize the next motion. Yes, Senator Robinson.
I motion to bring up Bill 2238.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to bring up Resolution 2238, a call for accessible ROTC parking on campus. This resolution is amendable, debatable, and requires a majority vote. We will start with discussion from the authors of the bill, and then we can move into discussion from the floor. So would any of the authors wish to speak? Senator Brown?
Yeah, to keep things short and simple, talked about it a lot during caucus, but the main reasoning for this, RTC members get up early morning and they get to campus. Usually they have to do PT, so that's physical training of some sort, so they're super sweaty. They have to go to classes. That being said, for everyone and the RTC members, they would like to shower. But the logistics of getting off campus, then getting back on campus in order to get to class, throughout all of RTC, Air Force, Army, Navy, whatever it is, there's a big issue of parking. So this is basically calling for it to be made accessible for upperclassmen RTC members. You can look in the legislation. We decided it was about 200. So upperclassmen RTC members are able to purchase a CG garage pass for Northwestern and University, which just makes it for all of their meetings throughout the day and at night, and also for the early mornings, whatever it is. It just makes it a lot more simplistic for them. And also, in those garages, there are a lot of open spots. So it's not like we're taking too much, and we're not giving them for free. It's just able to be purchased.
Yes.
Yeah, just to give an example, so tomorrow morning's going to be like 5 degrees wind chill, and I have to be there at 5 a.m. I'd rather not walk 20 minutes in a not so warm uniform when I can park at the garage. But the problem is, after that ends at 7:30, I have to be on campus for the next 4 hours, and I don't have time to move my car. I also don't want to get a ticket, so.
Any other discussion from the floor? All right, seeing none, we can move to a vote on Resolution 2238. So all those in favor, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, put that into SharePoint, and as you do so, with a vote of 28 to 0, Resolution 2238 passes. Congratulations, you guys.
Point of order, make sure you change it to resolution.
Good point. So as you guys are inputting that, is there another motion any senator would like to make at this time? Senator Brown?
I think I might do this correctly, maybe wrong, but bear with me. Motion to combine bills 2239, 40, 41, 42, 43, and 44, right? Yes, and 44 into one bill, or one voting.
Second.
Alrighty. It sounds like it's improperly moved and seconded. Parliamentary, is that debatable?
If it sounds like it's just a formal motion, so yes.
Okay. So, given that, so the motion was made to combine the following stipend bills. It's amendable, debatable, requires a majority vote. So is there any discussion at this time on why we'd like to do that or why not? Yeah. All right. So seeing none, we can move into a vote on the proposed motion. So all those in favor, please raise your name placards. All right, all those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, with a vote of 28 to 0, the proposed motion passes, so we will be combining the following stipend bills. Yes.
Madam considering that the people who are getting the stipend bills can no longer be here for said discussion, I would like to recommend you pick to chair the Senate while we all leave. It's no seconding, I'm asking you.
Right. I'm approving, so come on down.
I accept.
Yes. I'm also going to recuse myself from this vote despite the fact that I am not receiving a stipend bill, just out of fairness to you all and my position as pro temp.
Nice.
All right. Wait. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Yeah, any discussion at this time? Okay. I guess then we will move into a vote. All those in favor of bills 22, 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43, please raise your name. And 44, please raise your name placards. All opposed? And all abstaining? I guess we have one abstention. Then yeah, please go into SharePoint and fill that out for all 6 of those bills. Bills. Yeah. 39, yeah. Say that again? Oh. Maybe? Okay, yeah, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. No. Wait, yes, 44. Yes, and with a vote of everyone to no one, all 6 of these pass.
I'm sure you did so good.
I screwed it all up.
No, I'm sure it was great.
Alrighty. Pro Tem Ferguson.
I move to bring up Bill 2245.
Second.
Oh, great. It has been properly moved and seconded to bring up Bill 2245. Yes, the cabinet appointment of Press Secretary Andrew Escunes. Yes.
Just point of order, should I be sitting here or should I go somewhere else?
As a senator, I think you're entitled to sit there. And then answer questions about yourself.
You're still set.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So the bill is amendable and debatable, requires a majority vote. We can start from discussion from the author of the bill and then move into discussion from the floor. So President Jensen, do you want to say anything real quick?
Yeah, I'll make this one a little bit quicker than the lift bill. So I think we've all seen what Andrew can do. Obviously, he has a great name, but then as well, he's done some great things for the organization. We've seen what he's done with the small grant program. We've seen what he's done with FA and all of that. We've seen how well streamlined everything has been through FA this year. I know that the members of FA can probably attest to how great of a leader he is as well. We've heard tonight just how good his, I guess his mind is even. So I value people's mind, and his mind is a beautiful mind, as Dr. King says. And so obviously I cannot speak enough praise for Andrew. But Andrew, could you just speak on why you want this position and why you would be great for it as well?
Yeah, so I'm really interested in this position because I see press secretary as a really important role. It's how we talk to the press. It's how campus kind of sees who we are through the news. And because of that, it's important to have that person connected to Senate in some way. As someone who's been in Senate for a year and a half now, I'm pretty in the know what's going on here now, and I plan to keep it that way for next semester. So I look forward to having the opportunity to serve as the liaison between Senate and the exponent, because we do know that a lot of what is covered on PSG does happen here in Senate. And then also, okay. And then I also just wanted to say I see it as an opportunity to create more connections with PSG, create more connections for PSG. I said it during caucus, but I'm interested in working on a project to re-engage some of our alumni. We don't really have a very big PSG alumni base, and I see this as an opportunity to use some of that that time as press secretary for that.
Yes. I yield 2 minutes of my time to Press Secretary Chris.
That might be the last time I hear that. Interesting. So real quick, I just want to tell kind of a funny story. A couple weekends ago, I get a call from President Jensen, and he goes, "Hey, I think I found your replacement." I go, "Okay, who?" And he goes, "Well, who do you think it should be first?" And I go, "Okay, probably," I would say, because he gave me a list of a few names or whatever. And I go, "Probably Andrew Escunas." And he goes, "Oh, good, that's who I picked." I was like, "Okay, cool." So just basically saying Andrew's got a good head on his shoulders. He knows what he's talking about, and he's very passionate about what he talks about. And that, I think, is a big part of this job. And being able to defend yourself and hold your own is a huge part of it as well. So I think he'll do a great job.
Fabulous. Any other? Yes.
He's a cool guy. I think we should vote for him.
It's a great endorsement. Any other discussion at this time? Alrighty. Seeing none, we can move to a vote on Bill 2245 as Andrew is exiting the building. So, all those in favor, please raise your name placards. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Alrighty. Put that into SharePoint at some point in your lives, but with a vote of 28-0 Bill 2245, hold for drum roll. It passed. Congratulations, Andrew. Alrighty. Any other new business? Seeing none, we can move into announcements. Do I hear any announcements at this time? President Jensen, Martia?
I actually have a couple things to say. One, PSG prom on Friday, come. But two, I also, earlier I didn't get to say this, but I just want to say thank you to Evan. He is, I think, tied right now for the longest member in PSG with Ellie. He's given a lot to this organization, and we owe a lot to him. He has some gifts that are on the way, but they are they're not quite here yet. I didn't order them until this week. Sorry, Evan. But we will never have another press secretary like Evan, thank goodness. I'm just kidding. But Evan has done a lot for this organization. And so just remember to appreciate him and thank him for all that he's done, and we're going to miss him as well.
Those are due February 1st.
Yes, sorry.
Any other announcements? Pro Tem Ferguson. Fabulous. Anyone else?
We're doing 7 snaps or no?
We can.
I have 7 snaps to give that I'm forcing on people. Big snap to Senator Merkel, who is leaving tonight as he is graduating and graciously accepted my declaration of his resignation.
Oh I resign now, please. Second.
Absolutely.
He's resigned.
Big congratulations to everyone whose legislation passed tonight. I know this has been legitimately semesters upon semesters in the working for some of these. So big congratulations. Get your stuff. Have a good finals.
Yes, everyone, good luck on finals.
I move that we adjourn. Yeah, I move that we adjourn. Point of order. Point of order.
Izzy.
Point of order.
Madam Chair, I move that we do now adjourn.
All right. It's been properly motioned and seconded to adjourn the meeting. It's not amendable, not debatable, requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Fabulous. All opposed say sign. Abstentions. It's now adjourned.